Okay. Hi, I'm going to assume this is on and working, or I would hear otherwise, right? Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jonathan Mostowski. I work at the Defense Digital Service. I also actually work at the United States Digital Service, and I've been there since February 2015. Prior to that, I worked at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency for 12 years as a contracting officer, manager of contracting officers, primarily buying IT ranging from infrastructure services to application services for my entire career. And then moving over to the United States Digital Service kind of took on that next phase of the challenge where I'd implemented some creative strategies and approaches that I had come up with. I had sort of a structure where I had my own team. I was able to try things out, and as long as problems didn't rise above my desk, I had kind of free reign. So I experimented with a lot of different things, kind of a self-created lab. And then when I went over to the U.S. Digital Service, we began looking at how can we walk that walk between where policy sits and where contracting officers and FARs and regulations sits, and how can we give them tools and strategies? And out of that came like the Tech FAR handbook, which I helped write, and then the Tech FAR hub, which is now up, techfarhub.cio.gov if you want to take a look. And that sort of houses our tools and our best practices. It's got a discussion board that we're trying to create on Stack Exchange. You can feel free to sign up there, where we'll be able to answer questions as you ask them as they come up. And we continue to work with individual agencies testing out these different principles. The reason why I'm over at DDS is because before DDS was created, I did a discovery sprint over there looking at the defense travel system. Probably nobody here has ever experienced the joy of traveling through the defense travel system. But just in case you have or have not, it's not a commercial best practice is probably a safe way to say it. Just picture what you would do at home for those who really haven't used it. Picture what you would do at home, not when you're booking travel, but instead when you're paying your taxes, and it's kind of like that experience. And when we did that study, I made 3 recommendations to the Department of Defense. That was streamline the joint travel regulations, which was approximately 1,300 pages. Switch from the DTS legacy system, which was 30 years old, built originally, I will say, on a COTS tool, but then customized for 30 years with in Cognos. Move that over to a COTS SaaS offering using industry best practices. And then third, invest in data science. The defense travel budget is in the billions, closer to the tens, and so it's a lot of information. It's just a gold mine of data, and when you think about negotiating with commercial vendors, having access to what that data means can make a huge difference. Fast forward several months, DDS was created, DTS Modernization continued, and I'm still working on that, and now I'm over at DDS doing a few things. I'm going to talk real quickly about those because I don't have much time here, but happy to talk about any of them in further detail if you'd like. So for the DTS system, basically what we're doing is underneath a congressionally authorized pilot program for defense travel, we've actually gone out and leveraged the existing DTS contract, which already had scope for modernization. And we are attempting, or actually we've gone out and we've brought in a commercial COTS offer. And what we're now trying to do is see, is it possible to not do what the government's reflex is, which is change things to fit us, but actually change ourselves to fix things, especially things that we know work well. So we were running in parallel, attempting to streamline travel policy and attempting to change or waive or conform where we can the parts of DoD travel process to fit into the COTS tool. Or one of our guiding rules is we don't write code in the COTS tool. So the COTS tool is going to be the commercial version that you would find if you worked at any of the major companies around the world that use them. And it's been interesting. It's been difficult at times. It's been challenging. What other hard words can I come up with here? Basically, I mean, what I would say, it's kind of funny. Every time I have like a really good moment, I'm like, yes, it's finally working. I find out like something else isn't working. It's kind of like whack-a-mole. But it's because of that culture change that you just heard about. It's not that traveling through a commercial tool is terribly difficult. It's not. It's that we have incredibly talented and smart people working on things. They've dedicated, in some cases, have dedicated their entire careers to working on things and making sure. This is actually important stuff. I mean, travel kind of doesn't sound important, but it's extremely important when you think of the context of what the Department of Defense does and how it gets its job done. And on top of that, making sure people that work for the Department of Defense get paid or get reimbursed. All this stuff actually matters. And so there's people who have dedicated making sure these things work right. And so when you try to make things work differently and you can't prove that they'll be right, that makes them rightfully nervous. And Agile contracting is really my specialty. Product owner or product management is probably not, but it's something that I've grown and learned in over the years. And that's probably more of the role that I'm playing here as opposed to a contracting officer. And what we try to do is we just find these little small pieces and we say, let's try it. Let's try it on one user. Let's see if one user can make it through. Let's try it. What would happen if we did this for 100 users? One of the major barriers for government in general, but specifically Department of Defense, civilian agencies struggle with this as well, with booking travel through a commercial tool has to do with pre-obligation of funds. So when you book the ticket, obligating the funds through the system. And this was a major hurdle. And what we did is we worked with all of the appropriate offices and said, we understand the intent. We need to make sure that this budget is secured and that we're not double spending. And we're going to use a budgeting process as opposed to a typical on-the-books obligation process. And let's just try it. Let's see if it works. And we'll build up capability and functionality to make you comfortable that you're ensuring the DoD's budget is secure and yet not have to change anything within the COTS tool. And so far that's working. So that's one example of something that we're trying to do to implement commercial best practices. In general, what we try to do from an acquisition side is, to borrow a phrase from traditional Chinese medicine, a cycle of destruction. In my opinion, acquisition is so hard because all the elements make each other hard, right? So people are afraid it's going to take too long, so they put a lot of requirements in it because they don't want to go through it again. They put a lot of requirements in it, it gets more expensive. It gets more expensive, so businesses feel like they have to bid on it, even if it's not their bread and butter, because they don't want to miss out. It gets someone wins, someone loses, therefore they've missed out. They want to protest, so on and so forth. It goes around and around. And so what we're trying to do is break these apart. How can we make these quicker and easier? And one method is the other transaction that you heard a few minutes ago. So we just closed, put an RFI out on Google Docs. I mean, like, you know, we normally post RFIs out and we say, give us all this information. We get back, 30 pages of documents that people have to read and actually pull out what's interesting. And I was like, why don't we just use Google Docs and ask them direct questions, get direct answers back, and it worked really well. And so we're going through that right now, and the next phase is going to be hopefully to put out an RFP to actually build this consortium. But the purpose of which is to bring in vendors that have the capabilities so that agencies can take that risk and say, I'm going to build this small thing over here and I'm going to try it. And I'm going to build this small thing over here and I'm going to try it, and continue to build on that and grow without feeling the need that they have to lump all of their requirements into a single acquisition. So that lowers the risk for everybody. And then just other examples of some of the stuff we've done at DTS. I'm sure you've probably heard of Hack the Pentagon. Now Hack the Army is coming up. This is another one. We didn't attempt to go out and say, like, let's hack the entire Department of Defense, like, go for it, carte blanche. It was, again, taking a really small piece. Let's try a user-facing site, and let's see what happens. It's low risk, other than, maybe potentially being embarrassed by the fact that we found out something that had vulnerabilities has vulnerabilities, and then going from there. And in doing so, we were able to prove the incredible value to the Department of Defense by doing so. I could continue to talk about any of these projects, but I think is that good on time? Yeah, so go ahead and pass on to the next one, and then when there's questions, I'm happy to come back up and